I am declining the family vacation because my sister insists that I babysit. I'm not going to the family vacation because my sister insists that I babysit. At 23, I found myself constantly relegated to the role of helper and babysitter during family outings. I decided to leave my parents' home as I found myself constantly obligated to look after my 3 nephews. Last year, we embarked on a family vacation during the summer, heading to the coast. I traveled with my parents, who covered the cost of my hotel room. I found myself sharing that room with 3 boisterous boys, all because my sister and her husband desired a space of their own. I was assured that I would have the opportunity to pursue my own interests during the vacation. However, I found myself in the position of assisting with these children. I voiced my frustrations to anyone who would listen, only to be reminded that my presence was complimentary. Ultimately, we focused on a single activity that I was eager to experience: touring an art gallery. Whenever I'm at the coast, I enjoy doing this, though the kids seem to find it dull. This year, my parents have a beach trip scheduled for June, and they seem to think I'll be joining them just like I did last year. However, I declined. I mentioned that I would be driving myself and covering the cost of my own hotel stay to ensure I have my own room. My parents were taken aback and attempted to bring to my attention the expense involved. I mentioned that it was not a concern. I have a stable job and a reliable car that gets me where I need to go. I have more than enough to cover it. That's when the rear ends began to make their appearance. I outlined the reasons mentioned earlier for why I will be driving myself and covering my own expenses. I wish to fully embrace this vacation as an adult, without being treated like a child as I was last year. My parents informed my sister, and she reached out to express her frustration, claiming that I would spoil the vacation by pursuing my own activities while she manages her 3 boys. I found myself raising my voice at her, expressing that last year she merely entangled me in her chaos. I found myself unable to pursue many of the things I had hoped to accomplish. It felt as though I was cast in the role of the villain simply for my desire to visit an art gallery. I am an adult male. I also deserve a vacation of my own. My sister isn't talking to me, and my parents are still urging me to just go along with them to maintain harmony. I continue to stand my ground, yet the weight of the pressure is becoming increasingly difficult to bear. Am I in the wrong for standing my ground? They are bound to face significant challenges without someone by their side to assist them. It's only been an hour since I made my post. It seems my sister has taken to lurking on Reddit during the mornings. And she noticed my post. She is not only angry with me, but she is also disappointed that no one in the comments is supporting her. In summary, she expressed her frustrations about the challenges of parenting triplets. Given my youth and single status, I feel it's only right to lend a hand, especially since she could really use a break. I remained steadfast in my choice. Now she's reaching out to our parents to bring them into the situation. I anticipate receiving a call from them at any moment. Now that I'm off work, I can share more about what happened. It seems we have reached the end. My sister brought our parents into the situation, and they were utterly shocked by the relentless stream of commenters on my post. Indeed, they are quite upset with me for sharing my thoughts here. However, I explained that had they been more receptive to my perspective from the start, I wouldn't have felt the need to do so. I'm tired of the constant need to maintain harmony at the expense of my own well-being, just to appease my sister. They subsequently directed their attention towards my sister. In summary, the entire vacation has been called off. The hotel had not been booked yet, after all. My parents are in a heated argument with my sister, who is directing her frustration at me, while my nephews are in tears over the disappointment of not going to the beach. My sister called me at lunch and basically implied I have no life, which is why I have time to help. I recorded that and told our parents, and that's currently what they're fighting about. Small update. I wasn't gonna update again. But here's a little more. Parents said that they won't ever push babysitting of my nephews on me again, and have agreed that what happened last year was unfair to me. Right now they're very angry with my sister for telling me I should help her because she thinks I have no life. My sister is playing the victim. And my brother-in-law is basically saying nope to the whole mess and spending most of his time at work. Thank you to everyone who has commented. You made my day. Update 1. My parents apologized. My sister did not. At least at first. A week ago I made this throwaway account to ask Am I the Jerk a question I was found to be anything but tan. I have too much to say to post in Am I the Jerk as an update. So a friend recommended I come here. My posting on Am I the Jerk essentially opened a Pandora's box in the family. Basically, my parents and older sister had become very comfortable with me helping with the childcare of my young triplet nephews. I didn't leave home till I was 22 because I was trying to money while also going to college. A scholarship covered a lot, and living at home kept me from getting rising debt due to my working part-time as well. I'm very thankful for this. However, after college everyone just seemed to act like I had endless time on my hands, and convinced me along on a family vacation. In this so-called vacation, I was forced to babysit my 3 at the time 6-year-old nephews. I even had to share a hotel room with them. And believe me, those kids did not listen to a damn thing I said on the first night until I called their mother. Twice. And I was treated like the bad guy for wanting to do other things during the trip. Like if it's something the family doesn't enjoy as a whole, then it doesn't happen. Which was extremely hypocritical because I'm family and wasn't included in that vote. And you can bet I aired this grievance with my parents after my last post, and they have acknowledged being in the wrong. After that awful vacation last year, I decided it was time to move out. And did so before the summer even ended. Which surprised everyone as I gave them no warning. I'd landed a great job pretty much right after college, thanks to an internship, and used moving as an excuse to drop my commute from 45 minutes to 15. My sister hated this the most because it meant no more free babysitting on weekends. But she still tried to make me do it. I caved sometimes. Usually by being bribed with pizza. And this sort of became a new norm. But then last month my parents announced plans for another family vacation to the same place along the coast. And they basically wanted it to go the same way. I immediately saw it for what it was. A trap. I knew that if I rode with my parents and let them buy the hotel rooms, I would be screwed over the same way as last time. So I just casually stated I'd drive myself and pay for myself. And that's when the shit storm started. When my parents realized they couldn't entrap me like before, they resorted to borderline begging. And my sister practically tried to order me to go with the flow through gaslighting. Newsflash. I didn't. After I didn't cave to my sister's demands, I made the Am I the Jerk post after days of harassment. And then my sister somehow spotted that post in less than an hour. What followed was Pandora's box. At first the family was against me. My sister called our parents, and they called me when I still had a little time to talk in the morning. My parents were on the phone with me while also reading my post. I asked them if anything in the post was a lie. They sort of steered around it and called the post an exaggeration. But I pointed out numerous details that made it pretty much on the mark. Then I told them to check the comments. There were already far too many to read. I was repeatedly refreshing the page on my home PC and telling them how many comments there were. Then I told them I was sick of their mentality of keeping the peace by forcing me to placate my sister. Then I said I was out of time and we would have to resume this later. Well, my parents were positively horrified that hundreds, if not thousands of people were commenting in a matter of hours. And later on I told them that the numbers had basically doubled, and were still growing, which only added to their horror. So I guess they were forced to take a long look at their own actions. My sister tried to call me to bitch while I was at work. But my phone was on silent till my lunch break, so all she could do was leave messages and texts. But she was persistent and managed to get through to me when I was eating my lunch. The gist of the conversation was my post had taken our parents away from her side. And now they were mad at her. In the ensuing argument between them, my parents cancelled the entire vacation. Yes, they later acknowledged they just passed the blame out of embarrassment. And a fully accepted fault. They told me no excuses could excuse the fact they made me their go-to free babysitter when I wasn't even living at home anymore. They did try to backtrack a little by pointing out they never charged me rent while I was in college. But I reminded them kids don't ask to be born. And I was doing my hardest to make my own way. Then I pointed out my father had the same kind of leg up from his parents. They let him live free of charge at home while he was in college. That basically ended any argument my parents had left. When my sister managed to call me at lunch, I presented the facts to her. And she showed her true colors. She implied that I have no life, and that my free time on weekends should be spent helping her because she is tired and unable to even go out without bringing her children with her unless someone is watching them. She is a stay-at-home mother with a husband that makes a decent salary. They live in a pretty decent house that's owned, not rented, and to be frank, my nephews aren't really my responsibility. They just forced them on me and expected it to stay that way. My sister angrily hung up on me. But I'd recorded the call and then played it to my parents later. They were furious. And they basically went to war with my sister. My sister dug her heels in, blamed me, and then doubled down on her belief my life should circle around hers. I told her that was the most narcissistic and entitled thing she's ever said about me. It took days. But her husband finally stepped in and forced her to apologize to me. I'd never seen her cowed like that by anyone. But she was on the verge of crying. It ended up being admitted that one of the reasons I was the go-to babysitter was because my sister didn't trust strangers. It was never about the money. Or was it? Actually, my brother-in-law thought my sister was paying me for my time watching her kids after I moved out of my parents' house. She didn't even give me gas money, just gave me cash that was enough to order pizza for both myself and the kids, and pocketed the rest. My sister had been short-changing me for months. He blew up at her when this came out during her half-assed apology, and she was forced to pay me what she owed me in cash entirely from her own savings, which she looked very sore about. Then my brother-in-law apologized to me for his own inaction in letting my sister walk all over me, and promised they'd get a normal babysitter from now on. Yes, it'll cause a bit of a drop in the bucket for them. But my sister will be getting date nights back. Then came the family meeting the other day's evening. We all gathered up at my parents' house, and everything was laid bare. Apologies all around, and whatnot. Then my parents reinstated the family vacation. And yes, I still plan to drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay. I'll even stay in a completely different hotel if my sister tries to revert me to child care. And I have stated this. She's promised me that won't happen. And if I don't update again after the vacation in another month or so, then you'll all know everything is fine. Update 2. My sister called me demanding I take my posts down. Now she's more upset than ever to know how far it's spread. Having a family that knows about your Reddit account has its disadvantages. Yesterday my sister called me after I got off work to ask me if comments are still coming in. She said she cannot bear the negativity of looking at them herself because the comments are all so hurtful towards her. So I was brutally honest. At least 10 comments are still coming in daily, and most of them more or less say the same things about her. She started crying and demanding I delete my Reddit posts, but I refused and told her she can cry to anyone she wants, but the posts stay up because they are my assurance she won't try to treat me like crap anymore. After all, she literally felt like my life should revolve around hers, didn't pay me the babysitting money she was supposed to and pocketed it for herself, and forced me to be the constant babysitter on last year's family vacations, so I had pretty much no fun the entire time. Is it really any wonder people are having so much hate for her when she treated me like that? Then when I mentioned the posts have already spread to other websites because I was asked a couple of times to let an article be made about my situation. And there are some videos that were read as well. My sister shrieked hearing that, and hung up. My parents then called me begging I take the posts down. I've refused, and stated that I only did this because they didn't stick up for me. This would have never happened if they'd told my sister to treat me like an equal and not a servant. I'm not her butler, babysitter, or handyman. I'm her freaking brother, and a grown-ass man. Wouldn't they be tired of this crap in my shoes too? They agreed, but still begged I take the posts down. I refused, and said that I'll keep making more if they don't start sticking up for me more when my sister comes crying to them. Let her clean up her own messes. All the support she received culminated in this moment. I am not the father of those children. I have my own life to live. a profession I am still exploring. And hopefully soon enough a partner, as there's someone I wish to propose a date. I am progressing in my journey, and nothing will hinder my path. They can either move aside, or continue attempting to support my sister. However, I reassured them that the outcome would not be in their favor. The sole method for this Reddit post to come to an end is when the drama ceases. I have maintained anonymity. I have every right to express my legitimate frustrations. That left my mother in tears. My father fell into silence, and I remarked that tears don't affect me. They understand what it will require to bring this to a close. And that's to cease supporting my sister in ways that aren't helpful. My sister called me once more, raising her voice to inform me that our parents have decided they won't handle this situation any longer and expect her to sort it out on her own. Oh, and they suggested that she should show me more kindness as well. I can vividly imagine her eye twitching, a silent scream echoing within her after that revelation. Could you please be kind to my younger brother? What could this possibly be? Should I search for it on Google? Indeed, I was quite sarcastic with her. Yet, it also brought her to tears when I ended the call. Later, my brother-in-law reached out to hear my perspective on the situation. He was furious that I'm still sharing my thoughts and ended up making his wife cry. I provided him with a thorough explanation. He mentioned that he would have another conversation with my sister. I sincerely wish for this drama to reach its conclusion at this point. However, the family vacation remains scheduled for late June. I've secured my accommodation and arranged for a day off work, ensuring we can all set off on a Friday. My room is situated quite a distance from the ones my parents, sister, Bill, and nephews will be occupying. In reality, it's not even located on the same level. When we head to the coast, especially if it's not a family outing, I'll explore my own path and indulge in my own desires. I'm definitely going to explore those art galleries, indulge in the local cuisine, and relish the feeling of being carefree for a change. Update 3. Following the family getaway. The family vacation has come to an end. Certain outcomes, both positive and negative, unfolded as anticipated. It's positive that my parents didn't allow my sisters to pressure me into babysitting. Indeed, she made an effort. However, it was unfortunate that my sister attempted to discover which room I occupied. However, that misstep led to more complications with her husband. Initially, I ensured that I informed the hotel ahead of time that they were not to disclose any of my information to anyone who inquired, except for law enforcement. If such a situation were to arise, they promised me during our conversation that they would keep it completely confidential. On the morning of our vacation, I set off ahead of the rest of the family, leaving earlier than everyone else. I was aware that they wouldn't manage to start moving as a collective until at least 10:00 a.m. I departed at 9:00 a.m. Check-in is scheduled for 1:00 p.m. However, I aimed to ensure that I was ahead of the game. I quickly dispatched an FWI group text and then took off to tackle the 3-hour drive ahead. My parents were disappointed since they had organized a family brunch along the route. However, I highlighted that I was never informed of that. Thus, it was called off in preference for quick service dining. As I had intended, I reached the hotel ahead of schedule. It's too early for check-in. However, I informed the desk staff that my purpose for being there was to ensure that my parents or sister did not provide them with my information. They asserted that such actions are not part of their practices. However, I informed them that I am certain it still occurs on occasion. So I'm protecting myself. When they found themselves facing my mother, my sister, and 3 boys on the verge of tears attempting to sway them at the desk, they had better stand firm. I was curious to see if they would attempt anything. They clumsily assured me that I would be the sole person granted access to my room. After some contemplation, I made the choice to venture out and find something to satisfy my hunger. Upon my return, over an hour had passed, and there stood my parents' car alongside Bill's large SUV. I approached the desk to check in. The lobby was empty. Indeed, it was. I inquired with the clerk whether my family had inquired about my whereabouts and the hotel where I was staying. Indeed, They did. However, the clerk declined to provide them with the information. It seems my sister had attempted to push it. However, her husband silenced her. I arrived, settled into my room, and then reached out to my family. I refrained from bringing up my awareness of their attempts with the clerk, and they conveniently chose not to address it as well. We gathered together as a family to embark on an outing and explore the surroundings. At one point, my sister requested that I watch her kids for a moment, and I firmly declined. I was fully aware of her intentions. She would feign her absence for just a moment, only to truly vanish for an entire hour. I confronted her, and her husband advised her to cease her attempts to have me look after their children. What actions did my sister take? She suddenly broke down in tears, expressing her need for a break. Her husband reprimanded her, stating that he was a weary man, yet he offered no complaints. My mother shot me a sharp glance, so I approached her directly and stated that if she even considered the idea of me watching those kids, I would leave this family vacation immediately. I'm not responsible for this, and I'm fed up with her and my sister treating it as if I am. That brought my mother to tears as well. Then she began to echo the phrase, "You're right," repeatedly. This is yet another one of her familiar strategies. She attempts to appear pitiful in order to manipulate my feelings, but I simply stated that I am in the right and advised her to move on, before turning and walking away. Neither my mother nor my sister attempted anything for the remainder of the day. Upon returning to the hotel after dinner, my family gathered closely around the elevator. However, I wasn't accepted into their group. When they inquired about my reasoning, I simply replied that I would hold out for the next opportunity. My sister shot me a piercing look, fully aware of my intentions. After that, I settled in the lobby, engrossed in YouTube on my phone for a quarter of an hour, before finally taking the elevator up. I found myself on a separate floor, situated at the far end of the hotel. The night was truly splendid, and the following morning, we all ventured out for breakfast. However, I ensured that they departed before me. I exited last, mirroring my entrance from the previous night. Breakfast was pleasant. Then I informed everyone that I would be pursuing my own activities for the day. My mother suggested we make plans to visit the aquarium, along with a few other destinations. I mentioned that I would join them for those. However, the remainder of the day belonged to me until it was time for the family dinner. I accepted this. That day unfolded quite well as well. That evening, as I was about to step out of my room at the hotel, my sister spotted me. It seemed she was meticulously searching the entire floor for my presence. I returned to my room to relax for a while before dinner, feeling weary from all the walking I had done. My sister was just down the hall as I stepped out of my room to join them for dinner. She attempted to trap me in a conversation, claiming that I would spoil the family vacation for her, as it felt no different from being at home, given that she still had to manage her kids. I expressed my disbelief because my parents were providing her with considerable support. I expressed to her my frustration with the ongoing charade of her using me as a scapegoat, and I made it clear that it's already finished. Please allow me some space and focus on your own journey. Then I began to walk alongside her, calling out, "Hey, I am attempting to engage in conversation with you." I informed her that I was indifferent and had plans for dinner. She trailed behind me to the elevator, and a silence enveloped us both. I spoke up and informed my parents and my brother-in-law that my sister had followed me to locate my room. She received a reprimand reminiscent of a child's discipline. She hosted a gathering of self-pity. I advised her to stop dwelling on it and mature. The time when she could impose her desires upon me had come to an end. Stepping out of the lobby, I made my way to my car. This time, I arrived at dinner before anyone else. As everyone gathered, I noticed my sister's downcast expression, yet not a single word was uttered about the events that had transpired earlier, and honestly, that suited me perfectly. Throughout the entire evening, my sister avoided making eye contact with me. This time, I felt indifferent about sharing the elevator with everyone else. I made it clear to them that unless it was an emergency, no one should come knocking on my door. I had a sign that read "Do Not Disturb." There's a purpose behind the signature. The last day unfolded beautifully. Neither my sister nor my mother disturbed me in any way. At this juncture, they had completely yielded. Absolutely. Throughout the entire vacation, I spent some time playing with my nephews. I'm not entirely unreasonable. I didn't shut them out completely. I maintained my role as the entertaining uncle. Simply, not the babysitter uncle. The children appeared completely indifferent. All they desired was to engage in play. I purchased each of them a small bag filled with crystals and polished stones to take home as a keepsake. A touch of mild drama unfolded between my sister and her husband. However, those were merely minor disagreements that I chose not to focus on. Ultimately, I would consider the vacation a success, as it finally resonated with my mother and sister that the previous dynamics of our relationship have changed, and I am now living my own life. Update 4. My mother and sister have seen my last post. They truly lack the understanding of when to leave things as they are. Hello, Mom and Sis. I cautioned you that if you continued, I would return straight to Reddit. Here I stand. To put it simply, my mother and sister came across my last post and completely lost it. My sister had been keeping a close eye on my account for days, anticipating my next post. What did she anticipate? Really? Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves thoroughly. She reached out to me, tears in her voice, expressing that I had portrayed her as a bad mother. I found myself responding, well, if a glass slipper fits. My sister continued to argue with me, yet I challenged her to identify any falsehoods in the post. She made numerous attempts, yet I highlighted that each detail was precisely accurate. What actions does she take? She calls for her mother. Suddenly, my mother appeared at my doorstep, insisting that I remove all the posts. I declined her request. Now, I possess leverage for another opportunity. I found myself in a situation where she left in tears. I later had a conversation with my mother and father over the phone, where I candidly expressed that their support of my sister contributed to the earlier family dynamic. I refuse to return to the past. If there's any lingering hope for that, I will extinguish it once and for all. My parents then urged my sister, for the love of God, to stop placing blame on me and to just let me be. They can no longer endure the pressure of my response. Well, my sister felt as though no one loves her. A gathering of sorrowful sentiments. My parents had to bring her back to the present moment. My brother-in-law has yet to reach out. It seems he is maintaining a stance of indifference or neutrality. However, this situation is unlikely to benefit his marriage or my relationship with him. I apologize, my friend, out of respect for my brother-in-law. However, your wife has truly crossed a line with me. At present, my parents are urging that my sister seek counseling. She cannot embrace motherhood while balancing the remnants of her former life. Embrace your strength, as they say. I sincerely hope this will be my final entry. Did you catch that, sis? If you continue to believe that I should serve as your personal assistant, caretaker, or guardian, and persist in feeling that everyone is against you because you can't dominate our dynamic, then it's best for us to maintain our distance. If you're open to it, perhaps we can find a way to move beyond this situation together. Do not provide me with a motive to create anything further, and the discussions about you on Reddit will conclude here. I will share only those experiences that pertain to me and the way I am treated by others. Respect me as a worthy individual. And this will come to an end. Understood? I've had a lengthy conversation with my parents, and they expressed their apologies. For now, we've come to a consensus that I'll maintain some distance until Thanksgiving. Last night, I shared a candid conversation with my brother-in-law while enjoying some cold beers. He informed my sister that she required counseling, or he would part ways with her. They are currently working on securing a counselor for her. He mentioned that although my sister treated me like a witch, at home she is a loving and endearing wife. However, she also confessed that she enjoyed being an only child. There's almost a decade between us, and for a long time, my sister harbored some resentment about that, allowing it to fester within her. She has acknowledged the necessity of counseling and will attend as soon as arrangements are made. A qualified babysitter has been found to care for my nephews. In addition to those matters, my brother-in-law acknowledged his anger towards me as well, yet he chose not to intervene when I was in need. It seems we have come to a consensus that this entire scenario is indeed quite unfortunate and must be brought to a close. Thus, we shall allow it to find its peace from this point forward. Ultimately, these posts have led me to find a girlfriend. The girl I admire sensed it was me after she perused them. It seemed as though it was simply biding its time, anticipating my words. Tonight marks the occasion of our first date. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone present for their tremendous support. It was something I truly required.